So welcome to the AAPIs for Biden panel. Thank you all for being here. Let's just start off with having some of our panelists introduce themselves. So Varun, if you want us to start.
Hey guys, I'm Varun. I'm from New Jersey, Bridgewater, New Jersey. I'm currently a rising sophomore at Columbia University, studying economics and political science. I am an alum of the High School Democrats of America. I started my chapter, a local chapter in my local county of Somerset County. And I stayed in Jersey. I never did anything national, but I ended up becoming chairman of the New Jersey High School Democrats back in 2018. So that's really, my time in JHSD, and I'll kind of go more into that later. But I had also the honor of attending Summit back when it was in person in 2018. And it was a really, great experience, especially, they had amazing speakers like Nancy Pelosi was there, Cory Booker was there. So I hope you guys enjoy your Summit experience.
Cool. Hey everyone, my name is Adi Kulkarni. I'm going to be a junior at Cornell University, where I study public policy and data science. My kind of background, I guess, is I actually met Varun in high school working on a campaign together in 2016, so know him through that. But since then, I worked in the New York State Assembly. I worked for Senator Cory Booker before starting college, and then I worked this past summer at the House Committee of Energy and Commerce, which was super awesome. I have interest kind of at the intersection of law and government. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I'm currently actually on Cornell's campus in upstate New York. So.
Great. So you guys talked about your background a little bit, but what made you guys get involved in politics in the first place?
Yeah.
Adi, you want to take this one first?
Sure. Yeah. So I think for me, what really sparked my interest in politics, honestly, was debate. So I wasn't in high school. I wasn't involved really with much political stuff in high school, but I was a debater, and reading and learning about current events was interesting, and it's cool to talk about them and cool to know what you're talking about. But I think going a step further and being able to enact change was really what inspired me and what interested me, to know that okay, first I can talk about these things, but also I can go and have an impact on them. I strongly do believe there's a huge amount of power, and there's a huge lack of value in local and state politics, and you can have really profound impacts there. So that's kind of how I spent most of high school and early stages of college, understanding the nuance of local and state politics, and I think having a pretty kind of disproportionate impact on it, which was super interesting. And I think from a pretty metaphorical standpoint, my parents are immigrants, and I have seen how government can help and how government can hurt people on their sort of pursuit of the American dream. And being able to have some privileges in my life, it's sort of that ownership or that onus to have some impact and kind of balance the scales for moving forward. So that's kind of my two big aspects.
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of that, especially at the metaphorical level. Given my background, my parents also immigrated here, and they had a lot of these values. But I think specific to how I got involved in high school was the 2015 in the lead up to the 2016 election, in that primary season. That was kind of my first awakening to politics, especially during the whole Bernie Hillary debate, and that's where I started looking into what are policies that I agree with, kind of formulating my own ideology. And I actually was really lucky that the 2016 convention, so my freshman year summer, the DNC convention was in Philadelphia, which was not that far away from where I lived. So I applied to be a volunteer there. And so I actually got in to be a volunteer at the Asian American Pacific Islander Caucus at the DNC. That's where I got this poster from my freshman year. And that was honestly one of the most eye-opening experiences it was kind of twofold. One, it was just like magical. You know, I'm a 15-year-old kid at the DNC. Like, you know, how many other 15-year-old kids can say they did that? But also, it was actually a little disheartening in the sense that everyone there was really old. And this is before, like, you know, high school Dems was really at the level it was and at its, like, you know, prominence that I think it is today. I didn't really know what high school organizations there were. You know, there's no presence there at the DNC. And I was like the only high school student I saw in the different committees that I worked in. And so I, you know, came out of the convention, you know, kind of having this passion for kind of rectifying that, right? Like, I want to get more high school involvement in politics. And one thing I always heard was the whole stigma that, like, you know, like, how can young people, you know, affect our politics, right? Like, I can't vote, like, so, like, why should I care? And that's something I kind of wanted to set out to change. And so I went back home and I met with my friend, Jason Lamb. He actually eventually ended up becoming chairman of High School Democrats of America. But, you know, he and I were both interested in politics, and we heard about this organization called the High School Democrats of America, and we wanted to get involved. So we started a local chapter in our county because there was literally nothing in my entire county for the high school Dems. But we ended up growing it to, you know, have encompass like 6-7 schools in our county. And it became this like kind of cohort and community. And as I kind of spent more time in the high school Dems, the more I really like got more people engaged, but also myself really understood like why organizations like these are really great, because they fosters this community, but also it is an outlet for, you know, young, passionate students to get involved.
So how did you guys get involved with AAPIs for Biden, and kind of what do your roles currently entail within the organization? Adi, you can start.
Yeah, so how I kind of got involved was sort of through those relationships and through those experiences that I kind of formed in the past. So I think like there's like one big point I want to like mention, and I tell this to any sort of I mean, I'm a young person, but like anyone younger than me that wants to get involved in politics and government, and that's kind of, you know, you can get the opportunities. It's just once you get the opportunities, like how do you perform and how are you able to do work? And I think there's sort of a fundamental shift that occurred in my mind that was super beneficial when thinking about my experiences. And that's that like internships and interns generally are usually a burden to most people working in office, right? It may seem really cool for you, you know, like for me working on the Hill or working in the Senate was like super awesome. It was a great experience. But as soon as I realized that like for someone to explain how to do something to me, then that's like time that they could be doing something else. So I think that like all this to basically say that like you need, as an intern, you need to be someone who is autonomous enough to kind of like figure things out, to learn how to do things, to adapt. But at the same time, you know, fulfill tasks and meet tasks and requirements that are kind of set out. So that's like a larger point of like, just work hard, you know, be smart, learn, you know, how your direct report or your boss or manager operates, and kind of make their life easier. And if you can do that, you're able to build relationships that that last and that yield to something. And I think as much as I personally don't like this, or I don't believe in, like, politics is very much relationship based. And a lot of these opportunities aren't necessarily like, there's no recruitment process, there's no interviews. It's, hey, I know this person and they're going to give me an opportunity to do something cool, and I need to like show them I can meet that opportunity. So that Ishani was kind of your first part of the question, right? Like, how did I get involved? To be quite frank, it was because one of my really close mentors who I've worked with for a long time had a position on the campaign and he needed help, and he reached out, or I reached out to him and he said, yeah, hop on. The second part of your campaign, what was the second part of the question?
Kind of what's your role right now within AAPIs for Biden? What do you do in the organization?
Yeah. So I work as a fellow for the campaign, and that kind of is structured to to basically help out with the needs of the API director, Amit. And that's really everything from like kind of setting out big projects, meaning like when we want to start the organizing arm of the campaign, how we kind of structure that and build that, and doing kind of the groundwork so that he can come and kind of execute it. But it also means like leading up a couple of the efforts. So actually, Vernon and I are working on a couple of the youth efforts as well as the intern efforts. But I'll let Varun maybe speak about those things.
Yeah, for sure. I guess to the two parts of your question. The first part, my experience getting involved in the campaign is very similar to Adi. We had this common mentor, and we just also just both wanted to get involved, and so we took that initiative in reaching out. And I think that's like one thing is like don't ever be afraid to just reach out. Even if it's a long shot, they're always looking for people to help. Um, and I think also like for getting involved through organizations like High School Dems, if you want to get involved in campaigns, this is a great kind of channel to do so, because organizations like the Biden campaign are always looking for youth to get involved through internships, volunteering, and stuff like that. And so they'll reach out and they'll help like recruit people from these organizations. Like we have people from the High School Dems working with us for in the AAPI part of the campaign. But I guess similar to what I do is I'm also a fellow on the campaign, and many of the same tasks that Adi mentioned earlier is I help out with. And a lot of the work that he and I are focusing on is kind of engaging youth and setting up kind of this kind of like community of young, passionate AAPIs that will kind of have both as a network of people who can kind of, because there's not really much like structures out there for young, passionate API to kind of meet each other, and create this cohort. And so that's one part we're setting up. But we're also just trying to set up, this massive army of just young APIs so that come, crunch time in the election, right? Last 100 days, like we will be out there and we will be a force. We'll be making phone calls, we'll be knocking on doors. Like we will cement that like young people in the AAPI community, both which have been consistently overlooked by, campaigns and like political consultants and stuff like that. As a young AAPI, I know that like we have the power to change elections. We have the power, in states because we are that, that youth, that energy, that drive that these campaigns rely on. And so we're kind of working on a lot of those initiatives through outreach and organizing. I plugged our social medias in the chat, like that all of you guys follow us and take a look because we're always putting updates there. That's the best way to see, what we're up to and what events we're doing. For example, the other day we had an event with a former governor of Washington and former ambassador to China and Obama's Secretary of Labor, Gary Locke. So he's this really big guy in politics. But he came and sat down and spoke with us for a whole half an hour about kind of the rise of xenophobia and racism against our community. And so I think like that's like the power that this organization has in kind of, getting these top name surrogates, but also reaching out and doing these efforts.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, Varun, with an organization like HSDA, getting involved and getting these opportunities through there. Personally, that's how I found the organization as well. So I would recommend you all to join a caucus and get involved in the smaller communities within this organization. So kind of, I think what a lot of people want to know is how can they get involved with AAPIs for Biden and what can they kind of do as high school students?
Yeah, first and foremost, let me put into the chat our sign up form. That way you can be up to date on events and we can reach out if you want to get even more involved. We do have an internship program. And so if you're interested in taking that next step, definitely you can reach out to us and email us about that. But we're definitely really looking for just people who want to volunteer anytime they have, because they're passionate for this cause or passionate in getting involved in the Biden campaign. I think the times that we're involved in right now are extraordinary, and that they're they're insane. And so that we really, need to kind of match the moment and kind of bring this energy and kind of fight a lot of the negative parts and the cynicism of politics that kind of the other side brings. And, we definitely looking to have people get involved, and I'll put the form in. It takes like 20 seconds to fill out the information, just join. And I know, and Shani, you can like even talk about like how the substantive things that you're doing for the campaign. We're not having people only just sit and make phone calls all day, though that is a crucial part of the whole grassroots politics experience. We're having people plan events, reach out to speakers. They're writing op-eds. There's a lot of substantive things that people can do working on a campaign, especially because Adi and I are both young, and we really get that like we have a lot of skills as young people, more than just like foot soldiers on doing canvassing.
Yeah, I think really the beauty of AAPIs for Biden and being an intern or working with this organization is it's quite different from other opportunities where they might only be having you make phone calls or just work with data, things like very basic tasks. And this has been a lot more autonomous in that you are able to kind of come up with your own ideas and implement them. And there's really people like Varun and Adi, you have really been great with like listening to intern ideas and allowing us to kind of move forward with those and do what we see fit and use our skills in these areas to kind of further the organization and bring forth more opportunities for young AAPIs.
Definitely. I just wanted to add, I think 2 points. So first, it's a unique time to get involved with the campaign because it's a huge transition from the sort of primary to the general. And with that comes a lot of opportunity that if you get involved early on, then you were able to move on to really cool things, get a lot of leadership experience, and do a lot of impactful work that is available at this opportunity right now. And then I think the second point I want to bring up is you can let's step away from the campaign, right? Even if you're not involved in the campaign, I think the effort of going and finding an opportunity that you're able to kind of put the skills that you're learning through HSDA, through your school, through all the things you're doing, to put them into practice is really valuable. It allows you to understand how to work with people, how to share your thoughts and ideas, like express them, and also like how to be creative, because that's kind of the unique aspect of politics is like, especially when you're working with young people, you need innovative ways, right? Where we speak to 30-year-olds who don't understand how to use TikTok, but when we explain to them that like TikTok is how you connect with people who are younger, then you can have a presence for a campaign on TikTok, for example. We use Slack, and most people like over the age of 25 have no idea what Slack is. So I think that sort of creativity and that sort of innovation is something that you're able to bring into whatever you're doing. And so regardless of how you contribute, my like final thought is just like get out there, do something, and make sure you're in an opportunity where what you're doing is you're learning. Like don't, like Ishani and Varun said, if you're just taking phone calls and you're just phone banking or canvassing, like that might be an important part. That is certainly an important part, but ask for those opportunities where you get to really like put your skills to the test and show what you have.
Yeah, for sure. So do you have any advice for audience members that are considering pursuing careers in politics, potentially starting with leadership roles in HSDA?
Yeah, I guess I can speak to that. And I guess I, has more experience working on like Capitol Hill, and so I think he'll have really good insight on that. But from like an HSDA standpoint, I think, I'm not fully in the loop of what's going on, but I've heard enough to know like you guys, this is like, kind of also extraordinary circumstances for the organization. It's been some tough times. But I think that's kind of reflective of, I think some of the best parts of HSDA is that it is a group of young, passionate, hungry, like hardworking, high school students who just want to make change, right? And part of that is that we have these core beliefs that we want to hold ourselves and the organization to. And in that, you saw the recent election. People, they went for it. They ran for positions because they felt that they believed in themselves, that they could win. There's always all this talk, right, of like, oh, you have to go up the ladder, right? Like, you spend 1 year as your chair, like, sorry, chapter, or then run for like one of the lower positions and your state board, and from there try a national staff position. I think, if you believe in yourself, that you have good ideas, that's all that really matters. And I think people really they really cling to that, and that's why you see, like, I recommend, like, if you have any interest in running for leadership in your state and you have good ideas, just do it, just go for it. Like, it may seem scary and daunting at first, but like that's what I did when I ran the first time. Like, I was a nobody, but I just had ideas that I thought people would like to hear, and I just ran. And I had a competitive race. I had 3 other people running against me. But like, one thing I would recommend is, make sure you get your base out, right? Which means get your friends to vote for you, get your local chapter you're involved, because you'll be surprised how little people actually vote. Like, they get involved in all the social media hype in elections. But if you're ever interested, make sure you get all of your friends and your entire chapter to vote for you. And that's honestly sometimes more than enough to really clutch a win. But just be bold, have a vision, and just go for it. I don't know if we wanted to add anything about more like non-HSDA wise or anything based off what I said.
Yeah, I definitely. I think like my one kind of advice is like really just like take risks. You don't really have much to lose. Like I remember when I was applying for like a lot of my internships, I would start in the summer, have like a broad view saying like these are maybe the 5 or so places where I would want to see myself next summer. Then I would spend a lot of winter break just applying to them. And to be honest, it's the same thing. Like, it's the same interview, it's the same questions, just getting rehashed over and over again. And I think there's no harm in trying and shooting and getting rejected. And what kind of like sealed the deal for me is like I went and asked my supervisor on energy and commerce on the committee, like what stood out about my application. And he basically said, so there were 2 supervisors. One said that you're from New Jersey and I worked on Mickey Sherrill's campaign, and that's the reason why I wanted to approve you. I was like, okay, so literally it's arbitrary. There's absolutely no reason. And then the second person spoke about my like skills and experience, but what she also said was like there are people who were like law students, who were PhDs, who were like really, really qualified also applying. And so I guess my point in this is like, to be honest, most of these interviews are it's chance. It's really by luck. And in order, like statistically speaking, in order to like maximize your chances of being successful, you need to just put out a lot of feelers and pull out a lot of opportunities. And if you get rejected, you get rejected. Like I've been rejected a lot more times than like I've been successful. But those few opportunities where you are successful help build a track record and help you build more opportunities that when you go apply for the next thing, you can say, hey, I have done this and I've done this and I've done this. So I really do think it's, putting yourself out there, as Varun was saying, going for it, and don't expect success, expect failure, and you'll be surprised by the amount of success that you're able to find.
Yeah, so I think we have some time for audience questions now, if anyone would like to unmute themselves and ask our panelists anything.
Maybe if I could ask a question then to everyone. I'm just curious, how has the summit been virtual this year? I know that's been a whole different process. So I'm just curious to hear, like, who have the speakers been? How have the workshops been?
So
you go.
Shivani, did you want to say something? You had unmuted.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I thought it was very informative, regardless of like whether or not it was virtual. Obviously, like there's not, I guess, that component of like really getting to know people like super well, but I think in terms of like how informative it was, I think it's been really helpful how like they've taught us about how to like organize leadership and whatnot. So.
Anyone else want to talk about how summit's gone this year? Okay, I guess I have another question. Because Adi and I are really trying to like get more young, like especially high school students involved, in the our part of the Biden campaign and just in the Biden campaign in general. And I've spoken to like the high school Democrats AAPI caucus in the past. And I've gotten the vibe that, people are really split on their views on Biden. And I was just curious, what are things you wish the campaign was doing different, especially at the youth, outreach wise? Because I thought that was one thing that last time was very informative, that people gave really good advice that, Adi and I took and we tried implementing. And through that, we've gotten more people from the high school Dems joining. So I'm curious to get your opinion on, how do you think especially the youth outreach has been going? And what do you think we can be doing better?
Okay, I kind of want to speak with that. Can you guys see me? I think I'm frozen. Okay, you know how you said your opinions, you didn't say your opinions, but you said something about like how the Biden campaign is very can you speak over what you said, just like a little bit of it? I think I'm frozen. Can you speak over what you said, just like about the Biden campaign? What did you say about it? I'm sorry.
What I just mentioned earlier. Yeah, I was talking about how, we want to, and especially because we're young Asian Americans for Biden, right? We're doing a lot of outreach to high school Democrats, college Democrats. We want to know what we can be doing better. And I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on what has been your opinion on stuff the campaign has been doing, and especially youth outreach. Like, what can we do better to better engage? Like,
I mean, I think the Biden campaign is doing amazing because, as me, I'm like a Biden supporter. Am I frozen? I feel like I'm frozen.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
No, you're good.
So, okay, thank you. I was just saying that, I think what we could work on is just getting to know the campaign a little more. I get text messages all day just saying, hey, like, you guys know about the donations and like everything in that, right? You guys get text messages like that? I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, I pitched in, but there's a lot of things to do. I would say like okay, I'm a freshman, so I might not know a little bit about this. So it's my first time. It's my first time. So yeah. I was just gonna say that like, like I guess we could talk more about Biden's topics on debates, especially when he talks about climate and I guess I can't really say this, but diversity. Maybe a fun thing is that let's talk about his new vice president. I don't know. Let's just talk about that. I just wanted to have a voice. That's all I wanted to do. Yeah.
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 I think that's one thing, we want to do better on is really talk about, the vice president's position. Because I know a lot of people are Sanders supporters, and, kind of see like the vice president does not go far enough on a lot of issues. But I think, that's one thing we need to better articulate is, the vice president has a very progressive platform, and does, it is making honestly an effort to kind of better tailor it to like especially our generation. Like one of the big things was regarding student loan forgiveness. A lot of you guys are going to be going off to college soon, and so that's a really big deal that you'll soon find out is like for college students and grad students and a lot of young professionals is the burden of student debt. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's good. I mean, you're right. The vice president has a very big position. Not as big. I mean, the president is the leader, hopefully, Joe Biden. Just saying. Yeah, I do believe that. And so I just wanted to say that, just to clarify all of this. I'm Neil, so yeah, hi guys. Okay.
Yeah, and, Varun, adding on to your point about Biden's progressive platform, I had recently worked on a video campaign with Biden is Listening, and we were essentially talking about the fact that Joe Biden has one of the most progressive platforms of any president running ever. So for those of you kind of on the fence about supporting Biden or maybe volunteering or doing anything for Biden, he's been doing a lot more for the climate, student loan forgiveness, as you mentioned. He wants to transition to a 100% clean energy, universal health care, things like that to basically just support everyday Americans. So it's a really progressive campaign that he's running. So if any of you were on the fence, you know, it's very progressive.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do think that Biden was the most not important candidate, but I guess he was more into like students. I'm not saying that Trump isn't like the first lady is into cyberbullying. I understand that, I don't want to get into that. I see President Obama and his first lady, Michelle Obama, who, worked on, not just students, just a whole like school platform of, healthy, like let's move. Remember that campaign? I don't think we were all so little at that time. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I do believe that he's more into like the student intellectual. That's what I would say, my opinion. I mean, yeah. I mean,
For sure. Does anyone else have
yeah, I would say, oh,
hey.
I was just gonna agree that like I think a lot of people in the earlier stages of like the primaries and stuff were saying, oh, Biden, like he's the safe candidate, like he'll be the nominee just because like, like adults, like older people will vote for him, stuff like that. But I think that there should be more focus on, yeah, his policies are like a lot more progressive than some of the other candidates. And I think that like I should, like, even myself, I need to look more into that, because I also kind of went along with like, yeah, Biden, like settle for Biden,
Mm-hmm.
but it's true that like his environmental policies and like his history with like the NRA and stuff is more progressive than I think a lot of people realize. So maybe like focusing on that, but maybe that's something people just should look into themselves. I don't know.
Yeah, I think one thing also I want to mention that I don't think we've mentioned yet is that, Adi and I, in making this Young Asian Americans for Biden, or Yas Biden, we wanted to make it really a community for young people rather than solely just like an arm like working hard to elect Biden. Though that is definitely one of our primary goals, right? But I think, elections pass, right? And that this is a great opportunity to get young Asian Americans in the political process and getting involved in building this cohort. And I think that's also one of our major focuses. And I think that's really unique because I haven't really seen, many other, campaigns or parts of the Biden campaign or other campaigns, that have kind of had this community aspect. Because one thing I hope is that, in the future that, all the people who kind of sign up and get involved, they'll continue to speak with each other and we'll continue to have this cohort and community in the future. And that we kind of build on this because there hasn't really been anything similar to this in the past. Yeah, and I encourage all of you guys to sign up, and be part, join us, be part with us, because we definitely can use the help. 2020 is one of the most important elections and probably will be in like all of our lifetimes. But moving past that, we also want to make this a place where like young people can really have this kind of community that outside of HSDA isn't really there,
yeah, I believe that because, the 2016 election, I'm not going to go back to it. I will go back to it, but I would say that, this is the most important election. I believe you, this is the election that we're going into like our first decade, I guess, right? We hadn't had a 2000 election or a 2010 election. We had a 2000 election. So I guess it's like the first decade election. And I do believe that. I mean, you're right. Yeah. And I do believe that, high schoolers should get involved like us. And it's kind of cool that we all got involved and kind of happy. So be positive.
Yeah, and I know a lot of you touched on Biden's progressive platform and kind of how you maybe want to learn more about it or your peers would like to learn more about it. So do you think that's something that we as an organization at Yes Biden or AAPIs for Biden, is that something that we can do to kind of put out more information on his progressive platform to educate young people?
Definitely. I think many people typically, I think this was actually mentioned earlier, how Biden is sort of viewed as like the safe candidate, just sort of continuing the legacy of President Obama. I think we sort of need to inform the public about his specific policies, sort of like what he's going to do if he's elected into office.
Yeah, and I think that's really the onus is on the campaign, and on reaching out and making these efforts, and that's why we're here. That's why we want to reach out and talk to you guys, because I think that's a really important step in because we need young people, we need people like our peers, our people our age, to be engaged and to vote, because um, in the absence of that, we might get 4 years of Trump, and I don't think anyone would be happy with that, even if you aren't 100% with Biden.
Yeah, definitely. And going off of your point, Varun, I think beyond just volunteering or being an intern, what you're hearing from us today, and just kind of this communication, passing it on and talking to your peers about Biden's platform, those that may be on the fence, that's something that you can do to increase your communication skills, as well as just kind of getting more involved in the campaign.
Yeah, for sure.
So since most of the people here are probably very keen, interested on the topic of college, you both are Ivy League students, so could you maybe touch on how maybe your political involvement or civic engagement kind of helped you get into these schools or succeed academically?
Yeah, I guess I can touch on that briefly. I think, I like academics was a cornerstone of like my high school career. I made sure I did well in school, but I also, like political activism was almost an equally important part, especially high school dems. Like I was spending, hours a day, especially when I was chairman, especially during the midterm elections. Took a lot of time, because we were coordinating with, 4 or 5 campaigns, because we were at the epicenter of, the blue wave. We had, anyways, I'm digressing. But the thing was, I was true to myself, I think, in applying. And honestly, the college applications is a lot of luck, too. It's like, there's no exact science to it. There's not a certain number you need to get on a SAT or ACT. There's not a certain topic you need to touch on in an essay. And I think it really depends on just giving your own voice. But, since high school activism, high school politics, youth organizing was a big part of who I am and who I was in high school, I definitely made that a big part of what I wrote about, especially the lessons I learned in my experience. But yeah, I definitely mentioned it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend like there is a secret key that I hold, or Varun, I don't think you're saying that either. So I think definitely luck and chance is a big factor. To kind of contrast, Varun, I had terrible grades. I mean, not like that bad, but like they weren't like they were not a cornerstone, to use Varun's language, of my profile. But I was involved in campus, and maybe that helped. I also had pretty good relationships with teachers and with my school. So that probably had some impact. And I think like now, maybe at college, being involved in politics often is very helpful in finding a community when you first get there, whether it's, through debate or mock trial or student government or, Young Dems or any of these different organizations that I know a lot of the people I knew from high school get involved in. Like they really form a community. And I think, through the relationships that you guys will form, throughout the summit and in general in the future, these are the same people that you will see in college moving forward, and that are committed to the same values and the same fights that you've been fighting, all throughout high school. So I think that kind of as Rune was saying, like a lot of what you're doing now is of course for the specific candidate or the specific cause that you're doing. But I think as young people, it's valuable to think about, the people you are colleagues with, you're interning with, you're working with, will go on to, be the people who influence policy, influence government, and influence society in the future. So those relationships, I don't think can be emphasized enough.
Yeah. I think everyone, on the college thing, just like, as you said, like its path is different. And I think in the end, it always works out, right? Right. I had some friends that were like set on one school, but they did not get in, but they love the school they're going to now. So it's like, I think it becomes a bigger stress than it needs to be. especially like I don't know, like some of you guys are like freshmen, like I think just find things you're passionate about and just, focus in on that. Like, I feel like there's such pressure to just do everything, right? In college, like and high schools are join all the clubs possible, try to be the leader of every club possible. Um, I think I kind of, in my personal experience, I don't think that's like really that important. I think it's more important to just do stuff you're passionate and really go deep into those, because I think they really value, people who care about things or passionate about things. And I think all of you guys did the first step. If you're passionate about politics, getting involved in the high school Dems and really like spending your time, getting involved in campaigns at the local level, right? At at the state level, there's elections all the time, and especially at local level, you can get like really involved, like almost at like the level of like a chief of staff, like for your local mayoral race or city or councilman, in your town. So that's something I also recommend doing.
I just wanted to top that off. Are we almost done, guys? I don't know. Oh, okay, whatever. Yeah, I mean, for a person like me, I'm gonna start high school, so you probably guys all like, like, oh my god, like a little girl. Yeah, I'm down there. You guys are all up, right? Sophomores, juniors, seniors, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do believe that, like be a leader, because as politicians, you're not always a leader, but I guess that's a really good advice. So thank you for that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, we haven't really heard from a lot of the people on this call. So Pranav, Amrita, Amanda, any of you, if you'd like to ask any advice, how to get involved in the AAPI community and in politics, if any of you have any questions before we wrap up.
Hi, sorry I haven't been very active. I've been multitasking, but it's been really nice listening to everything you guys have said. One thing that I liked that we brought up was the fact that Biden's campaign, like no one really knows what's going on. I definitely agree with that. I think like nobody really knows like what Biden's campaign is. And when you mentioned that his campaign was really progressive, I personally didn't even really know. And I have to do some more research on it as well. But me and my HSDA chapter, we just started it, HSDA Springfield, and we're in like the Virginia area. We were actually thinking about doing like a little bit, we were trying to like make like information posts and stuff, just to like educate like our following about like Biden's policies and stuff. So yeah, maybe if you guys said that you're interested in doing stuff to like educate people, I think that'd be a great thing. I also had a question. What Ivy League schools do you guys go to?
Adi, do you want to go? I mean, I go to Columbia. It's in New York City. And yeah, Adi.
You go to Cornell.
Nice. This is kind of off topic, but how do you think the community at like your schools is? When you like went in, was it I mean, I know it's like generally hard to adjust for like everybody, but I don't know. I feel like at those like institutions it'd be a little bit more challenging. So I don't know. Like how was your experience like going in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Adi, you want to start with the one?
Yeah. I mean, I think like high school to college transitions like tough for most people. I think it's a lot of change. You've been living with the same group of people for like 17 years of your life, maybe for most people. And then it's kind of like everyone's getting like switched up and put in new contexts and put with new people. And, you don't have any friends. And it is like definitely a challenging time. But I think that, different schools have different ways of like mitigating that and making that different. What I'm saying about the challenges is like sort of a consensus that I've heard from a lot of friends transitioning. But I mean, I think ways you can kind of mitigate that is, having your communities that going in, whether that's through HSDA or the other commitments you have. It's also like kind of understanding who you are and like what are the things that you want to get out of college and what are the things that you don't want to get out of college or like you don't want to do. But then also having the ability to kind of like be flexible, right? Like maybe your major will change, maybe it won't change, maybe your friends will change, maybe they won't change, maybe you'll join Greek life, maybe you won't. I think all those are questions that you should have thought about, but you might not necessarily you probably shouldn't like be set in stone about them until you come to college, because things change, and I think that's 90% of it's really being adaptable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So like I'm assuming that and that a high school Dems has played a big role in both of your lives, and kind of on the topic of college, what other clubs have you guys participated in college that sort of fill the void?
So one thing is that like college Dems is definitely like a big presence on campuses. So if you really want to continue, you can definitely join the college Dems. I personally wanted to try new things my first semester of college. So I actually didn't really join that many political clubs. I did that more so my second semester, and those are really kind of specific to like my school. Like, so for example, we have like a public policy club that like works on coming up with it's like kind of an arm of like a think tank, so stuff like that. But I think I was really looking for like the young community, and there are definitely a lot of clubs like there, the college Dems, but there are also like pretty cool clubs that I never had the opportunity before to really get involved in. Like for example, on my campus is called club called New Sanctuary, which allows you to speak with and help out people looking for asylum, especially undocumented immigrants. And so that's a really eye-opening process. And like you don't really have access to like clubs in getting involved in things like that. But I know Adi's more involved in the political scene in college than I was in my first 2 semesters.
Yeah. So for me, I joined like a pre-law fraternity and a business club. They sort of serve as like kind of families. Like they're sort of a group of people that you can be friends with and you can choose to be involved with. I'm not super involved with them, but I've gotten to know a lot of new people through them. I think there was a lot of value in joining them my freshman year. This year I am I help found an office within our student government that does like lobbying and advocacy work. So that's kind of the equivalent to, I guess, like replacing what would be HSDA, but so replacing that experience. And then I also, work to co-found a startup. So that's also taking some of my time. And I think what's kind of shifted in my experience was I wasn't most of my commitments in high school were very involved with school. They didn't really have a tangible impact. And I've made sure that all of my meaningful commitments in college have some impact that goes beyond. And that's what you guys will realize. Like, as soon as you come to college, no one really cares what you did in high school. Everyone did cool things. Everyone like had good experiences. And so, fighting for like a club position will mean nothing, in my opinion, because as soon as I graduate, no one really cares. So I've worked really hard and I think Varun has too, in like building a community and building relationships in the real world, working with campaigns, working with New Jersey politics, so that when we do graduate from college, there are a set of experiences, a set of people that we can continue to work with beyond that.
Yeah, I guess, one thing, like, as you said, was I think just do clubs that you're interested in. You'll find out like there's so many different and specific clubs to your college, especially in politics, so like don't do things just because it looks good, right? I think that's the thing that's like a mentality in high school. I think that we all kind of fell prey to, because we're like you're so tunnel visioned on like going to college. But I think, just do things that you enjoy. And I think you should still do that in high school, like put your time into what you're passionate for, and what you're really interested in doing. And I in high school, I put a lot of time into the high school Democrats, because that was something I was really passionate about.
Anybody have any more questions? Okay, so I think we're going to wrap this up. Thank you all for being here, and please check out the socials for Yas Biden in the chat below. And if you have any more questions, email the email that Varun put in the chat. So yeah, thank you for being here, panelists and attendees.
Thanks, everyone. Feel free to email us if you have any future questions. Happy to, always be a resource.
Yeah, and
Thanks so much.
please sign up. We're always looking for more people to get involved. But yeah, any questions, email us. And we'll please follow our social media. We have like a kick-ass social media team, and they're putting out some really good content. And a lot of it is, like graphics they spend time working on. So if you always can drop a like on those, that'd be great. Thanks everyone for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.